This JT Sports back to you guys with another video. And I'm here with the highly requested Pittsburgh Steelers 2019 cornerback preview. Going to be going through all of the cornerbacks currently on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. And before I begin, if you guys have a team that you guys want me to preview, make sure to comment that team down below. And also make sure to comment the position with that team as well. And also make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Upload NFL videos and NFL content daily. And I live stream, have a live call-in show when we just talk about random stuff in the NFL, random topics, every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I also live stream on Facebook at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays, every Friday. So make sure to go like and follow my Facebook page. Link to that will be down in the description in the comment section down below. So the Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback position, as a Steelers fan, our cornerback position was okay. At the beginning of the year, we started out really, really bad, in my opinion. And a big reason for that was because of Artie Burns. I mean, that dude was an ATM, an automatic touchdown line machine. This dude allowed touchdowns left and freaking right. And he was god awful. He was god awful. So when we finally decided to bench him, that's when we started to improve. Cody Sensabaugh, we lost him. He didn't sign for another team. He's currently a free agent. I still hope the Pittsburgh Steelers end up bringing him back because according to Pro Football Focus, he was third in the NFL and having the least amount of yards after the reception, some crazy stat like that. So he was top 3 in that department, and he was really solid in my opinion. So I really hope we end up bringing back Cody Sensabaugh. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad neither. I just think he was pretty solid. So I hope we end up bringing him back. But the first guy we have on this list is the disastrous Artie Burns. 22 tackles, 0 interceptions, and 1 pass deflection. And it turns out that his rookie season was actually his best season. And Artie Burns pretty much has been a bust. I don't want us to cut him yet. I still want to see what he can do at safety. But if we're not going to move him at safety, then we might as well cut him because definitely nobody's ever going to try to trade for this guy because this guy gives up touchdowns left and freaking right. A lot of people were expecting this guy to have a big year because he was guarding Antonio Brown all training camp and things like that. But obviously that didn't make a difference at all. So we just need to get rid of Artie Burns. I was never a big fan of Artie Burns anyway. This is coming from a Miami Hurricanes fan. But I do want to see before we get rid of him or try to trade him or anything like that. I want to see what he can do at safety. And I would like to see us kind of try him out at safety during training camp. And maybe he might be a little bit better at safety. I think he actually has some potential at safety, actually. I just want to see if we can get any consistency out of him before we completely get rid of him. Because if we do get rid of him, then that just proves that we wasted a first-round draft pick on him. So I want to see if he can actually play safety a little bit. I think he could be pretty solid if we end up trying him out at safety. Next up, we have Herb Waters. Now, Herb Waters was an undrafted free agent out of the University of Miami in 2016 by the Green Bay Packers. He was a wide receiver during his time with the Miami Hurricanes and got moved to cornerback when he got drafted by the Green Bay Packers in their training camp. And he ended up making a practice squad that season before getting moved up to the main roster in 2017 before he got injured and got placed on IR. And in 2018, he was released in September during the final roster cuts when they were trimming down the roster from 90 players to 53. And then he later on signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad in October. So Herb Waters, don't really know what he can do, but he has very good hands coming from a former wide receiver. And it's also rumored that he's pretty solid in zone coverage as well. So I'm going to be interested in seeing what he's going to be able to do during the preseason, since that's the only time we're really going to be able to see what he can do on the field in some real live game action. So he's a guy that I'm rooting for. Of course, I always root for all my Miami guys, but Herb Waters, I think he should at least be able to make the roster just strictly based on special teams ability. And also, maybe he could end up making our practice squad. I don't really know. So he's the guy that I'm going to be having my eye on for Miami Hurricanes. Next up, we have Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden in 2018 had 63 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 12 pass deflections. He was all right. He was all right last season as well. I just thought he could maybe become a Pro Bowler. That's why I was so ecstatic about when we were actually able to sign him a few seasons back. But I thought we could end up getting him back to the level that he was, at least a Pro Bowler. But he's been solid. He hasn't been terrible. But I just was expecting a little bit more out of Joe Hayden. He hasn't been god awful, but I was just expecting a little bit more. But I do know that he's up there in age. But I just thought this Pittsburgh Steelers could get a little bit out of him. But he's been pretty solid for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think he's going to end up having another solid season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hasn't really missed a lot of games during his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think last season he only missed 2 games. So overall, he should be pretty solid. He is the best cornerback that we have on our team, and he has been the most consistent cornerback that we have had. So I think Joe Hayden should be in for another solid 2019 NFL season. But I do wish he could end up getting just showing us a glimpse of what he was in Cleveland when he was actually good or one of the best cornerbacks in the league. At least show us a little glimpse. He has shown glimpses from time to time that he can be a pretty good cornerback in the NFL, but I just wish we could get a little bit more out of him. But overall, he's a pretty solid cornerback. I just expected a little bit more when we ended up signing him a few seasons back. Next up, we have Justin Lane. Now, Justin Lane is a guy that a lot of Steelers fans, and myself included, are excited about. He got selected in the third round of this year's NFL draft out of the University of Michigan State. He has solid length and size, and is a very solid press corner. And in college, he was a former wide receiver his freshman year, and he has a wide receiver background, which helps him at that cornerback position because he's very solid at anticipating routes, understands wide receivers, and things like that, what they're trying to do. He's also very good at locating the ball as well. So I think Justin Lane could end up having a big impact for this Pittsburgh Steelers secondary, and I think he's going to end up having a pretty decent rookie year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, we have Cameron Kelly. Now, Cameron Kelly played for the now extinct AAF, Alliance of American Football. He played for the San Diego Fleet, and he was pretty good with the San Diego Fleet. He has pretty good length and size, and this guy, he's a former wide receiver as well. So Cameron Kelly is a guy who I think could end up making the Pittsburgh Steelers roster because I really like the film that he had when he was playing with the Alliance of American Football. Good length, very good man-to-man corner as well. Also has very good size. I believe he's like 6'2". And I think he could be a pretty good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And I think he should end up making the roster. At least he should be able to make the roster just based on ability to produce on special teams. But I actually think that Cameron Kelly could end up being a good depth guy or a good backup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, we have Mike Hilton. Now, Mike Hilton was a guy who had a really solid season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wasn't really expecting that much out of him in 2018, but he was pretty solid. He had 57 tackles, 1 interception, 8 pass deflections. Now, he wasn't phenomenal by any stretch, but he was pretty solid. He was very solid last season. 8 pass deflections, 1 interception. So he was pretty solid. He was also a very good tackler as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to figure out what his role this year on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to be. And I think Mike Hilton, he should be able to get a significant amount of playing time. And I still think he's going to be able to have a very solid impact. I just don't think we're going to get the same production out of him in 2019 that we got out of him in 2018 because he was very solid, very, very solid. I was very impressed of how Mike Hilton played last season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, we have Steven Nelson, played for the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Got signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. I'm very excited for Steven Nelson and what he brings to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had 68 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 15 pass deflections. In my opinion, he was the best cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs because their secondary was god-awful. It was one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, and Steven Nelson was pretty much the only bright spot of that secondary. He was the 33rd best cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. And I think Steven Nelson with this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, he's going to be an upgrade if he's able to start at that second cornerback position, at that cornerback 2 position. And I think he's going to really improve the secondary and the cornerback position because our secondary, you can't do no worse than Artie Burns. So I think Steven Nelson is going to bring a lot to this Pittsburgh Steelers secondary. And I think he's going to be in for a pretty solid season. And he should improve this Pittsburgh Steelers secondary a lot because anybody's an upgrade over Artie Burns because that dude is god awful, so disappointing. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan saying that, but I think Steven Nelson is going to have a very good season for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019. I thought this was one of the most underrated free agent signings this offseason. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers got a good deal for Steven Nelson, and he's going to do a lot of things for this Pittsburgh Steelers defense in 2019. Next up, we have Alexander. Not going to pronounce his last name because I don't know how to pronounce it. But this guy was an undrafted free agent out of Houston, has experience playing on special teams, and also is a very physical tackler. Now, for Houston, he was more of a rotational guy. He was a guy who was rotating with all the other cornerbacks, but if he makes the roster, it should be on special teams. But overall, I just think he's probably a practice squad guy, and I would probably be really, really surprised if he ended up making the roster. So this is it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.